Welcome to the Built on Air podcast, episode 3 of season 22. Good to be back with you. We've got myself, Dan, Camille, and Ali back in the house. Welcome back, Camille. A week off.
Hello.
Good to have you and Ali, as always. We might be joined by a special guest, hoping he joins us here shortly. If not, we will adjust on the fly. So, as always, the Built on Air podcast is an hour-long show. I'll walk us through what we're going to be talking about today. So we'll start with our Around the Bases, get you up to date on everything in the Airtable communities, news and updates. Then talk about our sponsor, onto our backups. And then if Matthew joins us, we'll be talking about a base that he's built to showcase all the AI tools and how that was built using a bunch of cool tools. If not, we'll jump straight into linked record fields with dynamic filters. Looks like I got a cutoff there. And Camille's going to walk us through that, some new functionality that just came out that we'll be showcasing. And then shout out to join our community, and then we'll wrap it up with a hack to sending emails at specific times with Ali. With that, around the bases. Sure. Okay. So let's see what we got going on. First, looks like Airtable is at a symposium expo May 12th and 13th in London. If you're going to be in the area, check them out at Gartner's Marketing Symposium for CMOs. So another event you can find them at. And here's one. Let me see. I don't believe this is the right one. Okay, so Make launched AI agents, and I think I've got this here. So if you're a heavy Make user, looks like they are getting into the AI agent space. So you can start testing that out on make.com. Get your agentic automations going. You might need to showcase this, how this works in the future.
Yeah, I still haven't played around with anything to do with agents, but I understand the excitement around it.
Yeah.
Well, now you're spoiled for choice.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, there's some tools. Zapier, I believe, also has it. There's some other tools out there. N8N, I know, is a early adopter of this. Camille, you're a user of.
Yep.
Okay. Next one. Okay, this is the new feature. Dynamic filters now apply to computed fields. So this is, Camille, what you're going to be showcasing?
Yep.
Okay. So basically, just quick high level, we'll go deep into it. Users can now apply dynamic filtering of linked records inside interface forms. If a linked record column has a dynamic filter on a computed field, such as a lookup or formula, then the records will be filtered based on those conditions. Inside interface forms, users will only be able to select linked records that match the condition. This provides a more consistent experience with the rest of interfaces. Very nice. Excited for that.
Exciting stuff.
So this is one that was announced. We missed it last week. But if you want a sneak peek, so they're advertising, we might have mentioned this, but I didn't see this post, image generation in Airtable. So it looks like they're coming out with the ability to use AI to generate images and then save them back as an attachment back in Airtable. And so it looks like you can fill out this form here to get on the wait list for beta access to that. And then April 24th, in 2 days, they'll be doing a deep look on it on their marketing user group. So you can register there for that. That'll be exciting.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. We'll see how it works. But yeah, image creation is definitely coming a long way with AI.
Oh yeah, I had a bunch of screenshots that I saved of when DALL-E was first released a few years ago, and like all the like little prompts. My brothers and I spent like an hour just like trying to come up with silly pictures, but like looking at what those images looked like 3 years ago is so funny compared to today.
Yeah. I remember that when DALL-E was like the new hot thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, the quality was very low.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is just talking about that event. 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. So you can register there for a marketing event. It's like they don't mention it here, but they might be using other tools in addition to the AI image generation. Next. So I thought this was interesting. Canva is launching essentially a Airtable competitor. So you see here, it's essentially a data table. So I think the thinking is like you can have a data table and then automatically generate, images or slides or something off of that data. But they even have formulas, magic formulas using the AI. And then you can get insights on the data. So I don't know. Canva's getting in the Airtable game.
Why not? Sure.
Yeah. And it looks like they're integrating with HubSpot and everything else. So it's kind of interesting play.
That was not on my bingo card for 2025.
Yeah. I don't know. Strange.
Yeah. We'll see how that plays out.
I mean, I generally love Canva. Like, they do things well. So I'd be interested to see.
Yeah. And it does make sense. You want you to make your images or your, presentations dynamic based off of live data. So there is some reason for having their own data store.
Yeah, absolutely. I've played around with, they've got like charts and stuff you can put in your presentations and they look really nice, but they like give you a table on the back end that you can, put the data in to build the chart.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if all that kind of connects together.
Yeah, maybe. All right. Oh, there's the make one with the duplicate. Whoa. Did a lot. I missed. There's other. Oh, this is. I think I jumped to the wrong one. So interesting bug. Did anybody? I was gonna see. Did you watch Scott's video of what the bug actually is?
I got halfway through it and then got distracted. So I did not actually see the bug itself. I know it had to do with, I think he removed an option out of a single select field. That's as far as I got. But
gotcha. Yeah, Scott, if you're watching, let us know what the bug was and if got any resolution there. Here's the other one. So the builders of Fill-Out's a very popular form. Just announced they're launching a new product called Zeit.com. So build with Zeit. So I actually have access to it. So this is actually the interface to it. So I signed up for the wait list and got access to it, and it's pretty cool. Like it built a site off of a single prompt. And it gives you access to the code, so you can modify the code if you want, or just kind of, the new buzzword is vibe coding, just being able to interact with the AI to rework your code. And so that's kind of the future, is no more writing code itself. You just do it all through prompts.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. So anyway, check it out. There's a waiting list. They are giving access. I think 100 a week is what they said. You can get on their wait list if you go to Zeit.com. But I think most people here are fans of Fill-Out. They have a very good development team, and I was shocked that they were able to throw this out there like it's nothing because they're already producing a ton of new functionality on their fill out product.
Yeah.
They're very impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm super excited to play with that.
Okay. Oh yeah, and here's their announcement on LinkedIn. So yeah, and there you can see a video of how it works. So good stuff. So that is around the bases. Let me look to see news. No, it's still not here. So we may maybe I can show something time permitting. If not, we'll call it short today. Maybe he'll join us later in the show. So we're gonna jump ahead. And if you are running your business on Airtable, it's best practice to make sure your data is backed up. That's where backups comes in. It will back up your record data, your attachments, your schema information into your own repository in Box, Dropbox, OneDrive, or Google Drive. And so you can rest easy knowing that your data is secure, and it does have the ability to restore your data, your non-formulaic data back into Airtable. So if you need a restore, you can do that as well. So check it out at ontoair.com. You can use promo code BuiltOnAir for a discount and get started today, knowing your data is backed up. So we will try to come back to this one. And Camille, let's talk about linked records, new functionality with dynamic filters.
Alrighty, so this is the announcement again from the What's New page on Airtable, and a lot of this is going to overlap with existing functionality, and I'll do my best to explain what exactly is new. So in brief, previously, if you had a form or an interface, or if you were just in the data view, you can have linked records be dependent on specific information about whatever record you're currently looking at. So in my case, I have a new form that's a job application. So if I want to limit my selection of jobs to a specific department, I could do only give me things in the sales department. And now when I click on job, it will just give me the 2 sales options. So that's not new. What is new is specifically for forms, you weren't able to use that same functionality if the field you are basing the filter condition was computed in any way. So that includes formulas, lookups, rollups, etc. Created by, created time, last modified, yada, yada, yada. Any of those you wouldn't be able to use to help filter down records if you were on a form. In interfaces, you could do it. In the data view, you could do it. But now, as of, I want to say yesterday, you can do so on the form as well. So just looking at how my job field is set up behind the scenes, I have it set that I can only select jobs where each job's department matches the department selected in that other field here. If I go to my jobs table, there's that department field that I'm using to match against. But I also have this formula field here called enabled, and I have it represented as a checkbox. What I can do now, if I go back to applications, is say, only allow me to select where it's the same department and where enabled is true. I can do save here, hit confirm, give Airtable some time to think about it. Still thinking. Yeah, all right, interesting. This wasn't the hard part. Okay.
Oh.
Good old Airtable. Need a page refresh.
Yeah. Did it go? Okay. All right. So it did work. If I go back to my form, do a hard refresh, and I believe a clear. If I do sales again, I shouldn't be able to select anything because none of them are enabled, which is the expected behavior for me, at least, because once again, if I look back at jobs, enabled is false for everything. What I can also do is have a created time field, which is also calculated. And I can say only allow me to select where the created time is, let's just say, I'm just going to do today. This is a bad example. You wouldn't do this. If I do that, hit confirm, and if I add a new job today, example sales, once again, add it to the sales department. Now, if I look at my form and do sales, I have the ability to select just the example sales one because that was the only one that was created today. So this is a very useful feature. It was, again, you could have done this on an interface for a while now, but you wouldn't have been able to allow the computed fields to be used as those filters on the form itself. So this is very useful for me, and I think in a lot of use cases where we do have computed fields, or lookups is the more common one, I think, for us, that would really expand our ability to have proper data collection. So we're not having people select records that they really shouldn't be on the form itself. And then just as demonstration, there's nothing special about how this form is set up. I didn't modify any of these settings here. It's just what I've demonstrated so far was just based on the fields configuration over here. And going back to the form really quickly, you can have it interact with this selection option specifically on the form itself. Sometimes you might want to do something where if you only have, let's say, 5 departments, maybe you want to have one form per department because there might be different copy that you might want to have up at the top of the form, something like that. Well, if that's the case, if you have multiple forms, one for each department, you could use the filter conditions that you have on that field, but you could also further limit it down to say, well, this should only give me jobs where the department is, I'll say IT. And then with that, I'm going to remove that from the form because it's now redundant. And then there are no IT ones created today. So I'm going to do example IT. And now immediately available example IT. So even though I have 2 records that were created today, which is the condition that's here on the form or in the field conditions, the form itself is specifically limiting me to only use the IT department jobs. Now, why can I see the IT one but not the sales one if I haven't selected a department yet? Because looking again at my configuration, department has any of department. Well, this department field on the form doesn't exist, therefore it's blank. Airtable, when you're doing the sort of has any of array condition, it treats an empty array as like it's not a condition at all. So that's not factored in to this condition anymore. If I had once again had the department field on this form and then removed the IT specific condition, then I would be able to drill down based on what a user selects. But otherwise, if you don't have the field department filled in, it's just going to ignore that condition entirely and go with whatever other conditions you might have applied. In my case, I said created today, and then the form itself is saying the department is IT. Hopefully that made sense.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, very new functionality, getting things standardized, which would be nice if they went through every place and standardized all of their items.
Yeah, so this is, I guess, a step in that direction, because you could have done this on an interface page beforehand, and forms were kind of left out of the equation. Now that's not so much the case anymore. They've sort of closed that gap for at least this very specific piece of functionality. I do wish they would continue to do that for a lot of other features. And forms is kind of the one example of Airtable having 4 different versions of the same feature and they all being different. So this thing, everything I've demonstrated thus far works in all 3 interface forms. I have not tested the form view for Airtable because that is basically depreciated. So they've kind of been like, don't even use this anymore, use the new forms anyway. But the interface page form, the standalone form, and the form pop-ups that you can have in an interface all work the same way.
Good. That's exciting.
Awesome. Thank you, Camille, for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on. I gotta remove. Okay, Ali, let's walk through emails at specific times.
All right.
Oh. There you go.
Awesome. Okay, so this is just a very simple yet, I think, useful little hack. So in this example, I've got students in classes and an enrollments table. So these people are taking these classes on each of these records here. And let's say I want to send an email the day before the class starts to remind all the students in that class, hey, the class starts tomorrow, and whatever other information I want to include. Now, at a very basic level, something I could do, because I have the class start date on each of these records, I could go add an automation and say, when a record matches conditions on the enrollments table, and I want to say where class start date is, let's say tomorrow, and I have not yet sent them a reminder email. So those would be my conditions. And if I go to choose the record, I've got all of these people who are starting class tomorrow and have not yet been reminded of it. However, the way that this works is that class start date, because there's no time associated with it, and also even if there was, there's no way for Airtable to recognize that in terms of these automation conditions. This would run, or it would have run, at midnight today. So as soon as it turned midnight, meaning it's now the 22nd, it would trigger for anything for the 23rd at or around midnight. And of course, that depends on your time zone settings and all these things. But essentially, Airtable is going to recognize that date the second it turns into that date, if that makes any sense at all. I'm trying to explain that clearly. And that is not always the best thing. For some use cases, it's fine to send an email around midnight, so somebody's got the email in their inbox the next morning. Other times, it's not really what you want. Like, say this class actually starts in the morning of tomorrow at 8 a.m. I don't want to send them the reminder at midnight because they're probably not going to see it until they're sitting in the class the next day. So how can we solve that? There is a million approaches, but one way that's pretty simple is if I change this to, instead of when a record matches conditions, I'm going to change it to at a scheduled time. And let's say if I want my reminder email to go out at 2 p.m. the day prior to the class. So I would set this up to run every day at 2 p.m. I hate searching for times in this dropdown. Always, it's like you have to do it exactly the way they want you to. So this would run every single day at 2 p.m. and it's not always going to do anything, right? It might run every single day and not actually do anything except for twice a year or something like that. But that's okay. I mean, you've got, even if it runs every day of the month, that's only 30 runs. And depending on your plan, you might have up to 500,000 runs a month, and that's not going to break the bank. So this is my little workaround. I would instead just have this run every day. And then I would go find records on the enrollments table based on a condition. And the conditions are going to be exactly the same as what I had just set up prior when I was using the when record matches conditions trigger. So I'd say class start date is tomorrow, and they have not yet received a reminder email. So now we're finding all of those people, and then we can just go ahead and use the repeating group action and say, all right, for all of those records that I found, go send an email. Let's just do the built-in send email. We could go send it to each one of those students. So like, reminder, class starts tomorrow. Yeah. And of course, just insert whatever we need from our record. Oh, interesting. I've never really noticed this, but if in the current item, there's no option to insert the whole record as a list or a grid.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah. I've literally never noticed that. And
yeah, that's interesting.
Right?
If you, yeah.
I mean, that's fine. I don't need it, but it is nice. It's a time saver when you're like just throwing together something.
You could add a find record step above this, and when record ID is current items record ID, but that feels silly, and you shouldn't have to do that.
You shouldn't have to do that, but we could do it just for fun. We could say, oh, I don't even have the record ID on the record.
It's also silly that you can't just directly grab the record ID. It has to be a field.
Right. That should
Yeah.
be in there.
It should. I totally agree.
Maybe just do the name just to get it to show up.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. We'll do enrollments. Hopefully all of my names are unique. So we would say where name is, and then in the current item, name. So that's going to find the same record that we're currently looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And now I should be able to insert as, yeah, there we go.
Oh my gosh.
That's so silly, right?
It's so weird. Airtable.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
But there you go.
There we go. So that makes it. I love the being able to insert this, but they need more flexibility. Like I'd love to be able to change what the label is, and I'd love to be able to reorder them instead of having to make sure that my topmost grid view is in the right order every time. I'm like, oh, come on.
Your topmost collaborative. But also Yeah, I agree. I want the insert as list and insert as grid to be more flexible. Reordering has become like a pain in the butt for a lot of our bigger bases because they don't have just one email digest thing. They have like 5. And some fields are just not relevant or not as relevant for this digest versus this one, and having to have one view that is the basis of all field ordering across the base is unfortunate, to say the least. So
Yeah, it's not fun.
Nope.
Not at all. That's why I end up writing a bunch of crazy HTML formulas and using that instead. But even that has its limitations. But yeah, this is just a pretty simple way to say, all right, I always, like, all reminder emails always go out at 2 p.m. And that way you're guaranteeing that it's going to be in someone's inbox, not at midnight, and they will most likely see it before the class actually starts. And there's a million ways you could adjust this too. I actually was thinking about like setting up something that's like every hour, and then maybe using a script to output the number of the hour. And then if you wanted to like schedule records in Airtable to be like, this goes out this date at this time, you might be able to use the scheduled time trigger and trick it into being super dynamic. But yeah, this has been useful for me. I use this a lot.
Yeah.
This also, actually, bonus, even though it's running every day and not necessarily doing something every day, so you're wasting those potentially 30 runs a day. But this, when it does do something, it's going to loop over up to 1,000 records. Hopefully you're not sending 1,000 emails out of Airtable. I would recommend using a different platform at that point. But that would only count as one run. So it actually does save stuff in the long run, as opposed to 11 individual runs. It's only going to be one run. So
yeah.
Very cool. That's definitely a nice trick. And we learned something new about the find record functionality.
Silly.
Yep.
That's bizarre. Because I mean, they would have had to like modify the send action to say, oh, this isn't coming from a find record directly above us.
Yeah.
It's really weird. I wonder if it's because in the current item, the current item isn't necessarily always a record. It could be just a value from an array.
Right.
That's true.
But they have it. It doesn't display all the same options.
Right,
if it's just a value, it just says array option.
No, it's a record, yeah.
Silly.
Very good. Well, thank you, Ali, for that. Let's move on. So first of all, if you are not in our Built on Air community, join us. builtonair.com/join gets you access to thousands of Airtable users and fans and people talking about it every day, as well as our newsletter that keeps you up to date, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and other social media platforms. We'd love to have you. And if you have something that is awesome and you want to share it, join us on the podcast. We'd love to have you on and talk about it. So with that, with time permitting, I'm going to go through something that I was going to show last week, but we ran out of time, so I'll show it today. So there was a user question in the Built on Air community. I couldn't find it today, but it was asking about the functionality within automations about the base structure and what the base structure is. And Ali, I know you responded, if you remember this question, about the benefits of that. So I thought I'd highlight that. This is something is becoming one of my kind of like favorite things. So basically what it is it gives you access to all of the table and field IDs and allows you to utilize them throughout any of the action steps within an automation. So the question is like, when do you use these? What are they used for? And things like that. So you can use them. It's available, I think in your demo I saw, like it's available in a find record or any of the action steps. It's essentially always there on use data from and all the previous steps. are there. So it's always available for any of the action steps. Where, and Ali, you mentioned this, where I use it a lot is within scripts. So it's very common within scripts that you need to, query a table and access fields and things like that. So that's where it comes in handy. So there's many approaches that we had to take prior to this becoming available. There was kind of like two thoughts. One is you would just have your input variables here, and you would just copy and paste them. So you'd have to go to the, to get like the app ID, you'd go there, or every table, you could get it from the URL. Fields, you could copy the field URL, paste it, and then get it from there. So there's ways to get the information from the system itself, and then you could just paste it in there. The problem with that is a couple things, like if you copied the base, then you'd have to update all of your input fields. And if you change things within the structure, it might mess things up. And so by making it dynamic like this, it will change. The other approach that we maybe took was just using the name, like the table name or the field name. One of the benefits of that is if you did copy the base, then the field names and table names would stay the same. But the bad part is if you ever rename the fields or whatever, your automations would break, and you'd have to go into the automations and always keep them in sync with your naming conventions. And so it was kind of a pain to do that. So this is definitely the best approach, where it'll dynamically change. So basically, all you do, if you're running a script and you need to query a table or fields, then you just come in here, click on the base structure. And one thing that's tricky here is if you're looking for, usually I'll search for the table first. Well, in this one, I just want the table. So let's say I want projects.
You have to click again, which is bad UI design.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you got to do a double click. So here's all my table names, and then you click there, and then it shows all the fields. And then so if you want the project, you click up here. If you want one of the fields, you click in here. So for this one, I want the table ID, and this one as well. I want the. I guess you guys search there. Okay, there we go. And then it shows the fields. I want the table ID, double click. So now I want a field. So I'm going to get the record ID from the table. So this is where it's tricky. If I know I want the project, so I want to select the table first, but now the field's already filtering based off of my search. So then you got to kind of delete that to get all of the fields. And then you could search or just go and find it.
Yeah. Another thing about this panel specifically, once you get into here, there's 2 scroll bars, and I found that's I don't know what went wrong with designing this particular panel. This is a great feature. I use it as well, and I'm glad that they added it. However, there's some implementation stuff that's just bizarre.
Trying to figure out what those what the difference is.
Right.
It's bad CSS. The box inside of it, the overflow is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
They set overflow to scroll instead. It's just, there's a box inside of a box, and the inside box is too long for its container.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's how you do it, and then inside your code you can get access to them. Like this, and then you can use them throughout forever for whatever scripting that you're doing. So definitely better than hard coding it directly within your code and making it dynamic. The other feature, and Ali, you mentioned this in the response, is these now, once you link these, it's now smart enough to know that it's tied to those. So if you were to go to manage fields and look at, let's go to projects and record ID. And so now it shows me that it's actually tied to that script. So if you're looking at, wanting to know like, oh, can I delete this field? No, it's actually tied to an automation. Whereas if you just pasted the value of that, field ID, it wouldn't give you this insight. So that's another benefit to that.
That's the biggest thing for me. I find that just chef's kiss.
It's really nice. One of the like hacks that I had to do beforehand for that was like to make a last modified time field or something like that and have it specifically target the fields that I know I'm going to use in a script, and I'd name it as field used in this script or whatever, blah, 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 and have that be in some way associated with the automation. But you couldn't select any computed fields. So that's just a limitation of the last modified time field. So it would only let me, I could only hack it in so many ways, but this allows you, like Dan and Allie said, to use the dependency checker, which is great. I do find sometimes I need to use 20 fields in a script, and it's annoying to put that many input variables, especially since you can't like move them up and down. Like the order stops making logical sense after a while that you put in all your input variables. But there are a lot of times where I only need like 4 fields, and I use this all the time for that now.
The only other annoying thing I find is like now if I'm looking at this list, like what's actually shown in the token for like it's just table ID and then the table ID. It doesn't show you like what the name of that table is. If you like pick the wrong one, there's no way to know that it's wrong. You'd have to go like manually check every single one of them. I think Kavan mentioned that she adds now a console log to the top of all of her scripts to output the actual field names of those fields so that you can easily check them and make sure that they are pointed at the right place. Because I've found that like several times I'm like, wait a second, which field, even if I name the variable as specifically as possible, I'll be like, wait, was it like date added or date sent? Like I can't tell by looking at the field ID.
Dan, could you add a quick new input variable that pulls any field out of like the trigger?
Let's see.
The trigger itself. So when record is created, I want to see like project. Yeah, just click project name. So yeah, that token tells you that it's pulling the field project name. But to Allie's point, the other ones are saying it's pulling the field ID, and that field ID is this. That's inconsistent. So again, great feature. The implementation is like wild.
Yeah. Even if just like in the highlight, like it just says table and fields from this base.
Yeah. And then hover over project name though.
Yeah. And it tells you, and it even gives a preview.
What's going on? It's so different. Very useful. Again, can't get over how useful it is, but man, is the implementation wonky for no reason.
Yeah,
for sure. That could be improved. Yeah. So just kind of showing the benefit of this. If you were going to select a record or query the records, and then if you do your fields, you can easily just use the field. So this limits, what fields are returned, and then it's all dynamic based off of here. So that's just kind of how you would utilize those in your script. And so yeah, kind of must have if you're doing any scripting. This probably is, I'm trying to think where I've used these outside of a scripting action. Can you think of a use case?
I guess you could I mean, it would still probably be in a script, but like say you're calling a webhook or something like a make or Zapier, you could set dynamically what table you want it to look at. Or
Yeah.
I don't know why you would, but I'm sure there's a reason.
Yeah, I kind of wish some of these selections I could use as the tokens, or just having the field selector of where Dan's selecting right now be dynamic. Because if I have a script beforehand that, for instance, outputs the field ID of something I know I want to change, I would want to be able, instead of manually selecting the field project name, I wish I could have that be dynamic with whatever the output of a previous step is. That's going to come in handy sometimes, not all the time. I get why it's not a feature, but yeah.
So yeah, if you were doing some kind of like meta, if you were tracking, all of your tables in like a meta table or something, then maybe that's useful. Although it'd only be relevant for the current base, so maybe not. I don't know. Anyways, while I'm on the screen, we've got a little time. 2 things. So we were talking before the show, like my frustration I've been dealing with is on this find records that you can't create conditional groups and do like more advanced queries on your conditions. That's a big frustration of mine.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to do like an and then another group of an or, something like that. And you can't do that on a find record. I actually had to move it to a script and did utilize the base structure. Also, does anybody use this feature?
Never.
Sometimes, but I don't look at this. I click the other expand thing next to the name to get me to open the view itself, because I want to see that view's like filter conditions and how it's sorted. And so yeah, like the pop-up within the automation window, I don't really use this, but sometimes if I need to quickly go to a specific view, I'll like click there and then click there, and it'll open in a new tab.
Yeah. If you could like add records here, because sometimes like I'm like, oh, I need to get like the record ID or something. If this made it easy to quickly add that field, useful.
If they used this UI to let you reorder how the find records would, like the fields would appear if you were to insert them in an email or whatever, that would be a useful implementation of that like UI component that they have.
Yeah, I agree. Do you remember when automations were only half the screen and like showed up like extensions did, and you could actually see the
grid? Yeah. Wait a minute.
Everyone was really upset when they changed it, and now I'm like, it's fine. I'm just used to it now.
I remember after that change happened, I feel like this screen looked differently as well, and then we got this sort of like everything's on top of each other. I think it's always been vertical, but then there's like this line kind of to the left, and I was like, oh, okay, we're gonna get branching automations. It's gonna be great. Why else would they give us so much horizontal space? That never happened.
Oh, like that would be amazing. Branching and like conditional logic, nested conditional logic would be incredible, and the ability to do a repeating group and conditional logic. Like I need to mix those. Very often I need to mix them and I can't, and it's very annoying.
I want to be able to do something after a conditional group or after the repeating group most often. I want it to run all the conditions of the repeating thing and then mark the record as done. Like that is a common use case I run into all the time, and it always has to be, I always have to mark it done before it's done, or have a separate automation that waits for 2 count fields to equal each other or something like that in order to get that accomplished. So there's some things that we could do to improve the automation feature within Airtable, and by we I mean Airtable.
I
For
agree.
me, it would be, I ran into this the other day. I wanted it to go down both
Mhm.
Channels, but it'll only go down the first the conditions are met. But I wanted it to execute this one and this one if both conditions were met.
When you have a Airtable, like the find record step, and you have a filter on a view, you have the option of doing and or. I wish conditionals were like that, where you set up your first one and then you make one decision. Is it and or? Right now it's always or. So it goes down the line. The first one it matches, it'll do, and then it stops. I wish you could say do all of them that apply, and then again something else at the end. That'd be nice.
It would.
Very true.
Because it runs in sequence anyway.
Right.
No step can start until the previous step is completed. So we wouldn't be changing that. And even if the limit within the automation is the same, I think it's 25 steps you can have per automation. Even if that remains in place, just being able to do one more step after the previous steps have been finished. And when I say one, I mean more than one. Give me flexibility. That would be nice.
Yeah. Very good. Well, that concludes our episode for today. Let's see if we can get our guest on in a future show. I'm excited to see what he has to share for us. So thank you all for joining, and we will see you next week.
Thank you.